I'm Dwight Drummond. Tonight, a warning from Toronto's top doctor that the Delta variant could impact the city's reopening plans.
What happens with Delta could cause problems that may disrupt reopening.
The warning comes as new data shows some neighborhoods are falling behind when it comes to vaccination rates. Plus,
this was two alert operators doing their job that stopped the catastrophe from happening.
2 TTC subway trains come within 1.5 meters of colliding. What we're learning about the frightening near miss. And
19 or 20 outside right now, and yeah, it's 32 up there. The highest that we've gotten to is probably around 38 Celsius.
Residents of a downtown condo have been without AC for weeks. Now they're learning a fix may still be weeks away. There were long lineups again today at pop-up vaccination clinics around our city. Thousands of people showing up to secure a second shot of vaccine and shore up their defenses against COVID-19. But there are concerns tonight that certain neighborhoods are falling behind when it comes to second doses. Kelda Ewan has the story.
The line was long at this pop-up clinic in Thorncliffe Park. Hundreds who work or live in more than a dozen hotspots showing up to get their second dose.
I'm really appreciative of this one that this office is provided for the most of the people that are coming. It's by walking.
According to the most recent data from ICES, the city's hotspots, which encompass many poorer and racialized communities, are trailing behind when it comes to second doses. For instance, as of June 7th, 17.55% of those living in the postal code zone of M5P, which includes Forest Hill, were fully vaccinated. Now compare that to just under 5% in the Jane and Finch area and 4.6% in Rexdale. At the city's COVID briefing today, Dr. Eileen Davila says there's an explanation for that.
This is due in large part to the way you have to space out vaccinations. So it's largely a function of when first doses and to whom first doses were given. That actually dictates or determines what happens in respect of second dose.
Ensure that our neighbors.
But Waleed Kogali Ali from the Regent Park Neighborhood Association says that's not the case. He says many of those in hotspot neighborhoods are now eligible for their second dose. The problem? Access.
A lot of members of the community didn't have the means to book their vaccines. And that speaks to the rollout, which, basically folks who are privileged, people who had high-speed internet, could get those appointments real quick and left everyone else behind.
Kogali said he and members of other community groups have been helping hundreds of people book their second doses. Akwatu Kanti, chair of the city's Black Scientists Task Force on Vaccine Equity, says there are some hotspots that are still struggling to get numbers up when it comes to first doses.
There's 9 postal codes in Toronto out of 96 postal codes where we can't get past 56 or 58% vaccinated. And that's about a 20 to 30% difference with non-racialized neighborhoods.
He says the key barriers remain the same.
Time, transportation, technology, and trust. And trust is the biggest one.
Canty says community outreach continues to be pivotal in these neighborhoods. Meanwhile, the city's vaccine sprint strategy is now shifting focus to hotspot neighborhoods where the more transmissible Delta variant has been found, with pop-up clinics being set up in 18 designated areas. Kelda Yun, CBC News, Toronto.
Dr. Eileen Davila is emphasizing just how much more transmissible the Delta variant is. Today, she pointed to the United Kingdom, where they've postponed the next stage of reopening due to the surge in Delta cases.
It couldn't have been easy for the government in the UK to take this step. But 55% of the population in the UK still has had either just one dose or no vaccination at all. And more than 90% of new COVID-19 cases there are Delta variant. The Delta variant is now understood to be more transmissible than the Alpha or the B.1.1.7 variant, which was itself at least 50% more transmissible than the original COVID-19 virus. Indoors, Delta is measured as 64% more transmissible than the Alpha variant. Outdoors, Delta is estimated to be 40% more transmissible.
The Villa added, where there's high level of fully vaccinated people, Delta doesn't appear to be a huge threat. Right now, more than 75% of Toronto adults have a first dose, and 20% of us have a second one.
Thank you for your hard work. I feel like I'm going to cry now. Our first COVID case was March 26, 2020, and today we are COVID-free.
Incredible news. Toronto General Hospital is celebrating that milestone today. For the first time since March 2020, their medical ICU is COVID-free. Nurses there say it's been a happy and emotional day.
The team behind me has left their families and come to work committed to their patients every day, despite the fear, despite the workload. So today I'm emotional that it's been 15 months and today is the first day COVID-free, and it's a wonderful feeling, but it's not us, it's this group back here.
Toronto General's critical care unit has cared for some of the sickest patients throughout the pandemic. Nurses say there are still some patients they're recovering from the illness, but there are none that are still sick with COVID-19.
So the last patient that was infectious was cleared by our infection prevention and control practitioners today. So they would have come in, like they would have developed their infection more than 20 days ago.
Nurses say the unit has experienced many successes and many hard times, but the milestone is the result of every single member of that team. Despite the positive step, 377 patients currently remain in intensive care in other hospitals across the province. For a few days now, we've been able to dine on a patio and shop in stores, but haircuts and other personal care services are still off limits. Today, Brampton's mayor sent a letter to the premier urging him to allow those businesses to reopen. Patrick Brown says this will cut down on a growing underground market. Greg Ross has more.
Louis Manzo says every day that passes has an impact on his industry.
It's been a long time and it's been difficult, so the sooner we can get back to it, the happier everyone's going to be.
Manzo owns Cabin Barbershop. He has 3 locations in the GTA that remain closed with 25 employees out of work. Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown is among a number of municipal leaders hoping to change that.
And right now the picture looks very positive.
Today, Brown wrote a letter to Premier Doug Ford asking him to alter the province's reopening plan, citing decreasing COVID-19 case counts and hospitalizations. He's not alone.
I noticed last week York Region passed a motion calling for the reopening earlier when it came to the personal care services sector. And this Monday, the GTHA mayors put out a statement saying that we would be prepared if it was in advance of the July 2nd deadline for stage 2 reopening.
When you hear that your politicians are standing behind you now and recognizing that that runway could be shortened and we can get there sooner with their support and their encouragement, I think that everybody recognizes that there's a chance to do this.
Brown says the lockdown is no longer having the desired effect.
Lockdowns across the province have led to an underground market when it comes to personal care services. It's in backyards, it's in garages. You've created an underground economy.
That underground market isn't being regulated by COVID-19 protocol the way barbershops and other personal care services would be if they were open, which is why many in the industry argue it's creating far greater risk.
What safety protocols are being adhered to, who's mandating, who's regulating, that's a real challenge. That's where we have to worry about the safety of everybody involved.
Manzo says most businesses are already set up to reopen safely.
We have capacities that are put in place for a reason. We can easily adhere to them. And we can also do what we did before, which was, do checks at the door.
Brown says it's important for people to continue to get vaccinated to keep case counts down and prevent another lockdown. Greg Ross, CBC News, Mississauga.
Bye-bye quadmesters. Both the Halton and Toronto District School Boards say a new modified semester will be in place for students who return to in-person learning in September with full class sizes. Here's an example of what that will look like. Students will take 4 courses per semester and will take 2 classes per week. In this case, a student would have music before lunch, then geography after lunch. That would repeat every day in week 1. Week 2, the classes would swap to English and math. The Ministry of Education has signed off on the plan, which the TDSB says will allow more face-to-face time between students and teachers. Students have until August to decide if they want to do learning in class or virtually. Families whose loved ones died in long-term care during the pandemic continue to look for some kind of justice. Some are pushing for criminal charges, others have filed class action lawsuits. Loretta Redekop has more on the search for answers and accountability.
Anna Maria DeFebo died at Sunnycrest Nursing Home last December. Almost every resident and many staff had COVID. DeFebo was taken to hospital. Here's what a nurse told the family.
And she goes, looks like she was, staying in her feces in her diaper for a long time. Okay. So I was like beside myself. My brother was freaking.
Her daughter still regrets not moving her mom out of the home.
If we only knew, we could have taken her home sooner, kept her here. I could have called somebody.
Class action lawsuits have been started against some homes, including Sunnycrest. The DeFebo family has consulted a lawyer on another type of lawsuit called a mass tort. They're one of 15 families involved.
Each individual brings a case, unlike in the class actions, but they're going to ask the court to hear those cases together because a lot of the evidence would be similar, but each case would be on its merits, unlike the class action, which is kind of an all or nothing process.
She says there are other options for families, including small claims court or a complaint against a staff member through their professional college.
It really depends on the kinds of things that you're interested in, what it is you want to get out of this. Is it a change in the systemic change? Is it compensation? Because of course, court cases are always about compensation. About money. They're not going to necessarily change practices.
Tina DeFebo would like some type of accountability, a coroner's investigation, or charges laid by police.
It would mean a lot to me because then I would see that they're doing something. They can't bring back the ones that we lost, but we can look forward to the future.
Nothing has been proven in court against Sunnycrest or any other long-term care home. Loretta Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
Hundreds of residents in a downtown Toronto condo have been sweating it out inside their units for nearly 2 months. When spring arrived, building management discovered the air conditioning wasn't working on almost half of the floors. And as Angelina King tells us, they won't be able to cool off anytime soon.
While Jake Hamilton works from home, he's desperately trying to cool off. Turning on fans, opening windows, but when it's gotten as hot as 38 degrees inside, it's not enough.
You're sweating from the moment you wake up till the moment you go to bed, and then even after that.
Hundreds of residents in his building on Dundas and Jarvis have been without AC for nearly a month. The cooling system is broken on the first 23 of 50 floors.
It's set to 67.
But it was actually 88 or 31 degrees Celsius in his unit one day last week. Outside, it hovered around 20. Hamilton says he's frustrated because it's unclear who's responsible, the condo owners or the association. He, like many others in the building, rents his unit.
There's a lot of people saying, this is affecting my health. I'm immunocompromised. I can't live in heat like this.
The property management company says it's been trying to fix the problem, but it's waiting for a single part that's been held up in Germany. And supply chain delays caused by the pandemic isn't helping. In a statement saying, in part, all focus was on the residents to make them as comfortable as possible, as quickly as possible, and fans were purchased for every affected unit.
The landlord.
This condo lawyer says residents may have no option but to deal with the heat for now.
This isn't a board that's just sitting on its hands saying, enjoy yourselves, it's hot, have a good time. This is a board and a property manager that is trying to do what it should be doing.
Hamilton wants individual owners to help provide portable AC units, but says when he asked the condo board to pitch in,
They say, we understand your frustration, but this doesn't fall to us. It's pretty disheartening.
The property management company says it's brought in a condo communications firm to help keep residents updated on any progress. But right now, the problem might not be fixed for another couple of weeks, while there's more hot days ahead in the forecast. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
Angelina said it. Colin's here to confirm it. Luckily, they can't open it today, but there will be hot days coming, Colin, of course.
Yeah, absolutely, Dwight. And in fact, she's right, because it's coming as soon as we're going to find temperatures coming up tomorrow. And then towards the weekend, the humidity beginning to come up as well. So that's why really can enjoy days like today, where the atmosphere feels so dry and the temperature is actually a little bit below seasonal. So there's our current readings. We were up to 22, but Toronto's at 21. And we've got some teens here. Kitchener 19, Markham, Oshawa, you're at 19 degrees at the moment as well. And what else do we have? Yeah, that north to northwesterly breeze, exception there at Pearson, but you see it otherwise elsewhere. At times where we've been seeing through the afternoon, some of those gusts up around 40 kilometers an hour again too. So that breeze is going to change direction as we go into Thursday. By the afternoon, it moves to the southwest, and that's going to help push those temperatures up. A few fair weather clouds. Otherwise, we do have dry conditions. Another day where high pressure will protect us, and then this system will start to move in as we go into Friday and bring back that chance of some showers. So in the meantime, we just get to ride this out and enjoy how things are going, and then we'll get some of that wet weather coming back at us towards the end of the week. And I'll go into more detail on that coming up. But for tonight, I do want to talk to you about what your temperatures look like. How about this? 10 degrees. And there we go, Dwight. Tomorrow, there's that heat building, 26.
Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
This weather update is brought to you by Train. For a limited time, take advantage of 36 equal payments and 0% financing. It's hard to stop a train.
The borders between Ontario and Manitoba and Quebec reopened today. All provinces agreed to drop restrictions on non-essential travel today after they were put in place about 2 months ago. The move comes as COVID-19 case numbers have dropped significantly and more people have been vaccinated. Businesses along the Ontario-Quebec border are praising the move.
Well, I think it's great. It's a positive step in moving forward to getting things back to the way, we're used to.
We've definitely seen an influx of customers from across the border, which is really nice.
We are very excited to have our Ontario clients come back and see us.
Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson says he is sending the more than $500,000 bill of what it cost to operate the checkpoints at the border to the province. He also said he hadn't seen evidence the restrictions between Ottawa and Gatineau help curb COVID-19 cases in the region. Canada's inflation rate hit its highest level in a decade in May. It's the second month in a row that's happened. Prices for everything from food to fuel are rising, but economists say the higher numbers may be misleading because last year's figures were so low. Jacqueline Hansen explains.
From houses to furniture and the material to build both, the costs of some popular pandemic purchases have gone up, according to new data from Statistics Canada. But that's no surprise to some prospective homebuyers.
I've never seen these kinds of prices for houses in my area that I've lived and grew up in.
The price of vehicles also went up, driven partly by a global shortage of semiconductor chips. That's resulted in fewer cars on the market.
The thing with the prices is they will only go so far because customers won't be willing to pay. If my supply is too expensive, nobody's going to buy it.
In May, inflation hit its highest level in 10 years, 3.6%. But that comes with a caution.
Prices look elevated compared to where they were a year ago, but that's because prices a year ago were rock bottom levels as in the throes of the first wave of COVID.
Take the price of gasoline. Compared to May of 2020, it jumped more than 40%. But that's because demand and prices were cratering this time last year.
Canadians are going to find a few things a little denting to their pocketbook, but we've also come off a year where we weren't spending that much of our income. So there's a lot of purchasing power out there in the hands of the average Canadian.
If inflation continues to rise even after Canada's economy fully reopens, the Bank of Canada could step in and raise interest rates to cool things down.
If we're going to have a real inflation problem, one that's more persistent, it's going to be a story that emerges next year.
For some people who have been priced out of the housing market during the pandemic, the waiting game is also on.
When we get to a calmer period where we can actually negotiate real prices and real conditions, that's what I'm hoping for.
Just some of the unknowns ahead for Canada's post-COVID economic recovery. Jacqueline Hansen, CBC News, Toronto.
Toronto police have charged 2 people after an incident at an East End mosque, but they say so far there's no evidence that what happened was motivated by hate. A man and a woman were arrested outside the Islamic Institute of Toronto yesterday after allegedly attempting to break in and threatening building staff. Investigators say the woman pointed her fingers in the shape of a gun and threatened to shoot someone. The man held up an object and threatened to blow up the building. Police say that object was a set of keys. Investigators say the two were on drugs at the time. 24-year-old Nicodemo Bruzesi and 22-year-old Samantha Stone are now facing a number of charges, including break and enter and threatening death. Members of the mosque want police to investigate the incident as potentially hate-motivated. Police say their investigation continues. We have images tonight of the overseas arrest of a couple wanted for murder in the Hamilton area. The pictures were provided to Hamilton police by investigators in Hungary. Police say the 2 suspects are wanted in connection to a murder and attempted murder in Stony Creek in February. According to investigators, Oliver Carafa and Yun Lucy Lu Lee flew to Eastern Europe within 24 hours of a shooting that left 39-year-old Tyler Pratt dead. A woman was also shot and seriously hurt. The 2 were arrested by Hungarian police on June 12th. Investigators say the process to extradite the 2 to Canada is underway. A raging fire tore through an Etobicoke bakery overnight. Fire crews say when they responded to the blaze at Dell's Pastry, they were met with heavy smoke and intensely hot flames. Alicia Son has more.
This building was absolutely gutted by this fire. It was a wholesale commercial bakery. It's now just a brick shell, almost completely collapsed. That speaks to how hot this fire burned. At the height of it, there were at least 25 fire trucks on scene. It was an all-hands-on-deck 5-alarm fire that proved challenging because of strong winds yesterday. It was a battle to keep it from spreading to the other buildings nearby. Neighbors watched and filmed in horror from their balconies. That's how we got this incredible footage.
It was a terrible sight, actually, you know.
No, the fire was so humongous. I can see the fires coming out at the back. So the fires was spreading a lot.
At its peak, it was a 5th alarm fire. In excess of about 80 firefighters were here, and they were coming through on a rotational basis. Initial indications are that it started in or around an oven, but that's still under investigation.
I'm happy that nobody gets hurt. What's the most important? Other than that, it's a shame. I mean, these guys should be devastated. Whole life working there. It's scary. I mean, it was a big fire last night.
Thankfully, no injuries have been reported. Crews worked through the night. They've knocked down the flames, but the smoke, as you can tell, still hangs heavy in the air this morning. Now they're monitoring the building for hot spots, making sure it doesn't flare up again. Fire investigators will be on scene all day investigating the cause of the fire at Dell's Bakery. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
When we come back, the Prez and Putin meet.
We don't share the same positions in many areas, but I think that both of these sides showed a willingness to understand one another.
Joe Biden and Vladimir Putin meet face-to-face today. More on what was discussed and why Putin warned Canada when it comes to cyber attacks. Next. U.S. President Joe Biden and Russian President Vladimir Putin have wrapped up their summit in Geneva. The 2 leaders seem pleased with their meeting, calling it constructive. Still, the 2 countries remain at odds over everything from cyber hacking to election interference to the Ukraine. Morelli has more.
After months of tense back and forth, a short but cordial handshake at the steps of the Villa Lagrange in Geneva. Inside, the international media clamored for the perfect shot of what would be the only time the 2 leaders would be pictured side by side.
Still, the U.S. and Russian relations have a lot of issues accumulated that require the highest level meeting. And I hope that our meeting will be productive.
Well, thank you. As I said outside, I think it's always better to meet face to face.
Biden and Putin spent a little under 3 hours face to face, a short meeting which covered a range of topics.
I did what I came to do.
President Biden framing the meeting as positive, productive, but said he took a strong stance on human rights abuses in Russia.
Human rights is going to always be on the table, I told him. It's not about just going after Russia when they violate human rights. It's about who we are. How could I be the President of the United States of America and not speak out against the violation of human rights?
President Putin less keen to talk human rights or Ukraine, which was brought up. But there was alignment. Both leaders agreed to resume stalled nuclear talks and return their respective ambassadors.
We've reached an agreement that this issue will be resolved. They will be returning to service, the permanent service, but when specifically it'll be tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, that's a mere technical issue.
One of the key issues, cybersecurity, specifically hacks on U.S. infrastructure, which officials in Washington say stemmed from Russia. Both sides agreed to start a working group on ransomware attacks. Biden told Putin that certain critical infrastructure is off limits. Biden was pressed today on whether he believed President Putin's behavior will change after this summit and what the U.S. will do if there are further aggressions from Russia. For instance, if something happens to Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny in jail. Biden would only say the consequences would be, quote, devastating, but wouldn't say what specific actions the U.S. would take. Farah Morali, CBC News, Washington.
A matter of meters, 1.5 meters to be exact. That's how close two subway trains were when they almost collided. How the TTC plans to make sure something like this doesn't happen again after the break. Plus,
East York residents are bugged by a pest control company's recent pitch to rid their homes of spiders and centipedes. They say, why bother?
There are so many different insects and invertebrates that share our home and our properties, our gardens and our yards. All of those that he listed were actually, for the most part, beneficial.
I'm Samantha Beatty, and that's coming up tonight.
I want to have a conversation.
the TTC is releasing more details about a nearly fatal incident last June. Two subway trains came under 1.5 meters of each other. The transit operator blames human error, but the union says that's not the case. Jessica Ng has the story.
This is the moment just after midnight on June 12, 2020, when two TTC trains nearly collide at Osgood Station.
They're claiming that it was a miracle. It was no miracle. This was two alert operators doing their job that stopped the catastrophe from happening.
Just before midnight on the 12th, northbound train 114 was held at St. Andrews Station for a medical emergency, carrying 2 staff and 5 passengers. Then, southbound train 123 was told to redirect to cover for the delay. To do this, the operator had to turn around using what's called a pocket track without automatic train control.
It basically goes in like a ghost. The ATC was not in that pocket.
The system tracks trains' locations to keep them a safe distance apart without driver input. The TTC is trying to move to a nearly fully automated system, eliminating train guards, the only other employee on board aside from the driver. So, train 123 is in the tunnel, looping to go north. When train 114, having cleared the delay, whizzes into the station at 43 kilometers an hour. A report commissioned by the TTC says the collision was avoided because train 123's driver hit the emergency brake. But the TTC says the only reason why they were in this situation to begin with is that train 123's driver stopped in the wrong spot and couldn't see the other train coming.
Although this was a case of human error, I am committed to making changes to improve our processes and modernize our system.
What is your opinion on, the TTC saying that the driver didn't stop in the right spot? Who's to blame?
Our drivers get direction from transit control. To blatantly blame an operator or both operators is just, it's unconscionable.
There are also concerns details about the incident weren't made public soon enough. Mayor John Tory tweeting, near-miss incidents are extremely rare on our subway system, and the TTC board and the public should know when these happen. The Transit Commission says as a result of the near-miss, 30 recommendations were made and are now in service. The board says details will be made public at the next TTC meeting. Jessica Ng, CBC News, Toronto.
It may be just another bug to us, but for some East York residents, spiders and centipedes are worth keeping around. Neighbors are speaking out after a pest control company offered to rid their properties of the creepy crawlies. As Samantha Beatty explains, some residents are urging others to think twice before squishing them.
When Antonia Guidotti is in her garden, she can't help but appreciate the little critters all around her. An entomologist at the Royal Ontario Museum, Guidotti is a certified bug lover.
So spiders and centipedes are predators. Wasps are predators too, and they're also pollinators, which is very important. Pill bugs are decomposers, so they're an important part of our ecosystem.
That's why it bugged her when a pest control company knocked on her door, offering to kill the insects and spiders inside and outside her East York home.
There are so many different insects and invertebrates that share our home and our properties, our gardens and our yards, and all of those that he listed were actually, for the most part, beneficial.
Nearby resident Lee Ying Ho got a similar sales pitch.
When he knocked on my door, it was unexpected. I've never heard of any pest control, pest issues along our street.
She was quick to turn the exterminator down. Her 4 kids love bugs.
So to see them dig in the dirt, observe an earthworm or pick up a little caterpillar, it's all quite magical.
Brendan Quinlan owns Insight Pest Solutions, which has recently been pitching its services door to door.
For those who want spiders and centipedes in their house, of course, that's their choice. And, not getting a service is something they can obviously elect to do. But for those that cannot live with them, such as my wife, this is not an option to have centipedes and spiders in the home.
He says they aim to control bugs, not eradicate them. Guidotti says there are a few true pests, like carpenter ants, bed bugs, and termites, that are worth calling in an exterminator. Otherwise,
they're a part of our ecosystem, and we need to learn to become a little bit more tolerant of the other creatures that share our space.
Samantha Beatty, CBC News, Toronto.
We need our bees. Green Party leader Annamie Paul came out swinging today after surviving an emergency meeting about her leadership last night and calls for a vote of non-confidence against her by her own party. Paul defended her mission to make the Green Party more diverse and said attempts to push her are motivated by racism and sexism. She blamed the push to remove her from office on a small group of councillors.
Often when people like me are elected or appointed to senior leadership roles, the rules of the game seem to change. Suddenly, there is a need for more oversight, heightened accountability, swifter and more severe sanctions, and a hiving off of responsibilities previously related to the role. Now, that is something that I will resist. I do not need a bespoke set of rules established for me, and I haven't asked for any special accommodation, but I am seeking the same freedom to lead and fulfill my role as leader of the Green Party on behalf of our members.
The Ford government said it plans to add 360 hectares of privately owned lands to an Ontario Conservation Authority. The announcement comes amid the province's use of ministerial zoning offers and the Greenbelt. MZOs allow the government to immediately authorize development, overruling local decisions. An MZO was used to fast-track developments in the Lower Duffins Creek wetland in Pickering. The province also said today they will add 2 acres of land to the Greenbelt for every 1 acre of land used in an MZO. Severe drought has swept across the southwestern U.S., and a heat wave is only adding to the trouble. People are worried about the threat of dangerous wildfires, and as Katie Simpson tells us, one official has even asked people to pray for rain.
Extreme heat and a lack of rain have created the ideal conditions for wildfires to ravage swaths of California. Authorities fear things will get worse, as this is just the start of another long stretch of hot, dry weather.
We're seeing fire conditions that we would normally see in August, September, October, just because of the drought conditions and the heat.
Right now, parts of 7 southwestern states are experiencing what is known as exceptional drought, the most severe category of dry conditions. And in some of those same places, roughly 50 million people are about to endure temperatures well above 40 degrees Celsius.
So we do have abnormally high temperatures forecast this week, and some records could be broken.
Nevada's Lake Mead is already at historically low levels, leaving bathtub ring markings along its shores. The consequences of this could be severe, as it is a major source of power and water for parts of the Southwest.
We are looking at the possibility of declaring shortage in the lower basin for the first time ever.
In Utah, conditions have been so dry, the governor asked people to pray for rain. Critics say instead this should be a starting point for a difficult but urgent conversation.
The question is, are state leaders willing to accept that this is not a short-term drought, but that this is long-term climate change?
Drought conditions in the U.S. haven't been this bad in about a decade. Back in 2011, southern states experienced one of the hottest and driest summers on record. There are fears this year could be just as bad, if not worse, given how hot and dry it is already, and it's only mid-June. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
As you always teach us, call it the weather and climate change, two different things. These are long-term effects here.
Yeah, they are. We just see more and more of these extremes. That's really what's happening. And the experts sort of explaining that this is really, it's stacking the deck against us with what's happening with the climate, that there's going to be more events like this. So all these colors you're seeing here, excessive heat warnings, watches, heat advisories, stretching all the way from the Midwest, in fact, over to Southern California and into Arizona, and up all the way towards Montana, where they're seeing the extreme heat. And some of the red areas, too, you're getting into the fire danger as well. Not that there aren't fires anywhere else. Then I've also got on here the radar and satellite imagery to show you, like, where is there any hope for precipitation? Okay, a few pop-ups. This is just not enough to help in the way that they need. So just have a look at the current temperatures. Especially, I want to point out here, Needles, California. Well, it's only, let's see, what's the time here? It's only about 3:45 in the afternoon there. They're likely going to make it to 50 degrees Celsius. You see some of the other readings. Well, they're not just, breaking daily records for highs. They're breaking all-time temperature highs, or at least tying them in many centers there. The hottest weather they've ever seen in many cases. Okay, current temperatures here. Doesn't it just make this seem so much more comfortable when you do those comparisons? 21 degrees, still holding on with that, but also holding on with the feel of the atmosphere being more comfortable because we don't have the humidity. Now, we are dealing with our own types of drought that we are seeing in terms of the conditions that we have in southern Ontario, in fact, into northern as well. So we could use some rain as well through this region. We're not going to be seeing it tonight. We've got clear skies tomorrow as well. And in fact, what's going to happen with the winds is they're going to turn more towards the south-southwest as we go into Thursday. So our temperatures are going to elevate a little bit as we see those winds kicking in from a southerly direction. In terms of trying to get some rainfall coming through, here it comes overnight Thursday into the wee hours of Friday morning for cottage country, and then beginning to push through. Most of it earlier in the day on Friday. I say most of it because then there's another line that's coming up here that's going to be pushing through Friday night into early Saturday morning. Timing on that one will be kind of crucial to see whether we're going to have anything kind of changing or affecting your plans for Saturday. It may all be done before we even get to what's going to be happening as we go into Saturday morning. So second run at that. I want to get you to your overnight temperatures. Lots of single digits that we're going to be seeing from Oshawa, Markham, and Hamilton, 7-8 degrees for your lows. And then just having a look at what happens with Friday. Yeah, the temperature comes down a few degrees, but look ahead into the weekend and a very important day on Sunday, Father's Day coming our way. And also, it's late into the evening, but the first day of summer also coming our way that day, and it's going to be very summer-like.
That's a wonderful Father's Day present for us. Thank you, Colin. First day of summer. You're the best.
Yes, everything for you.
When we come back, we set sail with a Canadian Olympian.
For me, being out in the water is a sense of freedom. We get a different view of the world.
Sailing since she was 7, Torontonian Sarah Douglas is heading to Tokyo this summer to represent Canada at the Olympic Games. I speak with her about her journey after the break. And as we head to break, here's a look at where the markets closed today. The TSX closed down by less than a point. The Dow was down by 266 points. Our dollar trading lower at 82.03 cents US. We're coming right back.
The market update is brought to you by Desjardins, rated #1 financial institution in Canada by the Banker magazine.
One Toronto woman is hoping to make waves at the Summer Olympics. Sarah Douglas is one of the 9-member team representing Canada in sailing. She sails women's single-handed dinghy laser radial. I spoke with Sarah about what inspired her to get into the sport. Sarah, let's start with just how you're feeling. A little over a month away to the Olympics. How are you feeling?
I'm excited. You know, I'm training here in Toronto, and I love being home. I love being surrounded by friends and family. And Toronto is a great summer and great conditions, so I'm just so happy to be here training in my final prep.
I'm going to hazard a guess that there's not a lot of people that look like you in the world of sailing. So we want to know, how'd you get into it? Like, how'd you get started?
I got into sailing from my brother. He actually came to Canada. I used to grow up in Barbados. I kind of followed in his footsteps. It's all his fault. He all brought us into the sport, and I haven't looked back.
Was it in the back of your mind like, hey, you know, maybe I can make it to the Olympics before your brother even did that?
Even as my brother went to the Olympics, I never thought about it for myself. It wasn't actually until I heard Rosie McLennan speak about her.
A great Olympian.
Yeah,
great
amazing
Canadian Olympian.
Olympian and role model. I heard her talk about what it was like to win a medal for Canada after London in 2012, and I just kind of had that moment of, what am I doing? I want to do that. I want to win a medal.
All right, Sarah. Good to go from here.
How do you feel when you're out on the water? Like, because some people, you know, when they get into their sport, it's like they get into a different world, they get into a zone. How is Sarah Douglas out on the water?
For me, being out in the water is a sense of freedom. You know, we get a different view of the world, different view of the city, wherever we are, lake, ocean, river, and we're out there, there's no technology, you're just wind in the hair, and, you know, I love, for sailing for me, it's just, I love the competitive side, and I also love just going out for a cruise with friends.
Let's talk about the competitive side, because a lot of us don't know. We watch it at the Olympics, we've seen it on TV, but we don't really understand a lot of what goes on to be an athlete that's a sailor. So kind of tell us what the name of your event is, because I know it's recently went through a name change, and what you're up to out there.
Yeah, so I sail the single-handed woman's dinghy, which is the laser radial, or also went through a name change to the Ilka 6. And basically we kind of describe it as you're running a race, but you're also playing a chess game at the same time. We're working the boat hard to try and go fast, but we're also looking at all the elements, reading the wind, reading the clouds. We're looking at the ripples on the water, and then you're positioning yourself against the other competitors.
Nice, nice. That's good. So to catch these swells, which are moving pretty fast, she's got to use the energy of the wind in the sail, and with the addition of the energy of her body weight on the deck to create power and speed, and that's how you catch the waves. Oh, there's lots of movement of the sail to kind of make sure that it's always trimmed well to the wind direction, because the wind direction's always shifting, and with your speed it changes as well.
Any young sailors out there that may want to live the life that you're living now, to dream of maybe going to the Olympics or being a sailor? You talk about Rosie McLennan inspiring you. What kind of inspiring words do you have for the next generation of Canadian sailors?
When I was a youth competitor, I got into the mentality of love to win, hate to lose, which is not the good way to have.
Yeah, because I think in my research, you came second and you were upset.
Yes, I came second in youth nationals, and that was the worst thing for me. I wanted to quit the sport after that, even though it's an amazing accomplishment for most people. I was so fixated on winning, and I didn't see the big picture at all, and it actually led me to quitting sailing for a couple of years. And so that's why it's so important to enjoy the journey. In the sport of sailing, we have so many things that we cannot control: the weather, the elements, other competitors. And so I always just think, focus on yourself, focus on what you can control, and go from there.
Sarah, we are proud of you, and we so look forward to cheering for you as you
Thank you.
represent us at the Olympics this summer. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Dwight.
And good luck. It's going to be
Thank
fun.
you.
I'm Ismaila Alpha, host of Metro Morning. Well, Ontario's opioid crisis has gotten worse during the pandemic. Coming up on tomorrow's program, we're going to hear from an outreach worker who's also an opioid user. And we'll get the stories of the people behind the statistics. Join me weekdays from 5:30 till 8:30 for Metro Morning on CBC Radio 1.
Time Canada.
One final check to see if these comfortable conditions will continue, Colette.
Yeah, well, things are looking pretty good, Dwight. We do have some subtle changes coming for tomorrow, but the perhaps most important thing or dominant feature, this ridge of high pressure over the Great Lakes, it's in play again for Thursday. So that means sunny conditions coming our way. The changes will be that the winds are going to shift to the southwest, so the temperature comes up a little bit. Humidity should still feel pretty comfortable. And then we'll watch as the system kind of moves through into Friday and gives us a chance to get into some showery activity. But overnight tonight, just dry, clear, 10 degrees for the overnight low. And as I mentioned earlier, we will see single digits, 7 for Oshawa and towards Markham, Newmarket through those regions where it is going to be a little cooler. Hamilton likely 8. Tomorrow, though, here you go. Toronto 26 degrees with all that sun. The winds do get a little stronger into the afternoon. Nothing too serious. And there on Friday, come the rain showers, 24. Probably by late afternoon, there'll just be some sort of isolated ones left behind. If you're thinking patio Friday evening or something like that. Later Friday night into Saturday, another round moves through. That may even be gone by early Saturday morning and 26 degrees. And we've already talked about how much we like how Father's Day, the forecast so far is shaping up here.
Sandals all day. Thank you, Colette.
Yes, you're welcome.
That is our show for tonight. Thank you for joining us. No late night because of hockey. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 6. Have a great night out there, everybody, and stay safe.